Hi guys and welcome. My name is Padilla and I am the owner of We Are the Artist Photography. So today we are going to go over how I personally edit my skin and get it super sharp at the same time. So first things first, we always work on the background layer so we don't create any kind of destruction to the actual image. So we're going to hit Command J and then that will create our background layer. Now we're going to go into adjustments. She looks a little on the maybe orangey side, but we're going to go ahead and fix that in a little bit. So I use Portraiture 3, which you don't have to do. We can always just use something else, but typically I use the skin mask, so I'll go ahead and click on the skin there. I do try to zoom in as much as possible just to get a good reading of what I'm doing, because if you're pretty far away, you're not going to know, how much smoothness you're actually creating. So for my settings, I like to keep them about here. I don't like doing overly smooth, but then I also want to make sure that it's, doing something to the skin. And I'm pretty happy with that. It's affecting the areas that I wanted because I had already pre-selected it. So I applied that to the background, and then I'm going to go ahead and again hit Command J and create a copy. So we're going to use Smart Sharpen. There's a lot of sharpening options, but Smart Sharpen for me is the best. So I'm going to go ahead and click on her eye because her eyes should be the sharpest thing that we have besides the hair, but the hair should be a little bit, smoother than her eyes. So we're going to look at lash detail, and whenever you hold it down, it's going to show you what you had before. And right now we have it at 57%, and then the radius, that's basically what's going to affect. So how much of the image are you affecting? And then you have the reduce noise. So as you can see, as I slide over the radius, it's basically getting either stronger or more detailed onto what, part I'm doing. So the hair is being affected, any kind of small details. I don't want it overly sharp either though, because then that will kind of throw it off. And then her hand is out of focus, but I'm going to go ahead and ignore that. And I do, like I said, use reduce noise. And what that does is that whenever it's overly sharp, it's not going to create those really fine noise or speckles on the skin. And then I have remove Gaussian blur. So that's basically all I do, and I just kind of move it around and see what I like. And then when I'm happy with it, I'll just go ahead and hit OK. And then we already have that the buttery kind of skin effect on the bottom layer, so it's literally applying it to a separate layer. So if we were to not love this, we can tone it down. Now we're going to go ahead and zoom in, and we're going to see what we've done. So I just grouped them together just so we could see. So that's where we were, that's where we are. And then you do lose a little bit of highlights, but honestly, I don't really mind with this image. I'm going to go ahead and flatten that. And like I stated before, she did look a little bit on the oranger side, and that's just because of the way I edit, and sometimes my skin tones get a little bit orangey. But I just like to fix it in post anyway. But the best way to do it for me, for backgrounds or anything, is I like to use a dropper tool in the HSL. And then you can kind of make it dramatic. That way you can see where the colors are affecting and then the array of color that you have. So down here, you're going to actually minimize the effect. So I'm going to go ahead and just target either the whites, which you can see that her pupils and any little white specks there mean that it should be close to or almost absolute white. And then you just fine tune it. If you guys have seen my other videos, you know that this is how I edit baby newborn skin. And so I like to take out the yellows and things like that. So that's quite different. So it just removed a lot of the yellows, a lot of the overcast that we have, or not overcast, sorry, the color spill. So we have like color casts and whatnot. And now we're going to fix her actual skin tone. So you'll see that we still have some like array of color back there. But now we're just going to target her skin. So we just want to make sure that it's not too broad and not too narrow. And then again, it's still affecting like her pupils and stuff. And then I just bring saturation down. So that worked for the background and that worked for her eyes. So if you remember back before, what we did when we zoomed in and we were working on her skin is it looked super yellow in her eyes. And instead of, going in and just masking and, drawing, like basically affecting her eyes, what we did here did a universal thing. So anything that was like off, filter, we wanted it to be perfect. And then here we're just going to play with brightness and contrast. So if you ever feel like you don't want to mess with curves and you want that like photo to pop, this would be where you go in. And then you can also use levels. So if you drag levels from one side to another, you're clipping that absolute value, so the white absolute or the black absolute. And so you're basically clipping things. So that's our before and after. And then again, you can just group them and kind of like see on the slider how you want them to look. And the good thing about Photoshop is that you've got layers and layers and layers to work with. So if you don't like something, you can go back and just tweak it. So here we're going to affect just the reds, so the deep, deep reds. So you'll see that, that turquoise color you're seeing there, we're actually going to just target that. And that way any other color on her skin is not going to be affected. So if you ever see somebody editing and it looks crazy, that's what they're doing. And then I just bring down the color, and sometimes I'll bring it over to yellow. It depends on how crazy the skin looks. And obviously I could have done all of like the skin work in Lightroom, but I prefer to do it in Photoshop. Just because it's a little easier to target certain hues. And then go ahead and flatten. And then these are just my presets that I like to use. You don't have to use these. It's literally the same thing as doing this. All you're doing is literally bleaching stuff. And then you're also brightening it. So I'm going to do her eyes just for some more retouching. And then I'll show you right now what this is. So it's basically just the whites, and then you got curves here, and then brightening and contrast on top. And you just saved yourself on some actions. But this one works a little bit differently too. So I'll show you what that one does. And then I like to work it on the teeth too. Except for sometimes you'll notice that the brightness you don't need on the teeth. So we can go ahead and do is just like tone it down a bit. And I also like to like go over the whole thing and make sure that, nothing looks too crazy. And then all sparkle this is from Paint the Moon, by the way. If you haven't seen their actions, they're amazing. These are actually my first actions that I ever purchased, and it was more of a learning lesson than anything. but they are amazing. So they have a whole like thing in there that has like the sharpening, the brightness, the curves, everything you want. And I'm going to go ahead and just brush that on there. But again, you can do this manually yourself. And I just like to hit those inner corners. Basically, if guys and girls, if you guys ever do your makeup, then you guys know, high points and shadows and stuff. So I'm just hitting those highlight points. Or even if you draw, because you need to do highlights in there too. And then I kind of hit that cheekbone a little bit. It's subtle, but also dramatic at the same time. And I like to do snapshots. Again, if you watched any of my tutorials, you know that me and snapshots are like best friends because I like to keep it, pretty non-destructive. And then all we're going to do now is we're going to work on that background. But if you notice that if we turn down the vibrance or the saturation, all we're doing is removing the color, but we're not actually removing any of like the lightness. So HSL would be the preferred way to go since that's the one that we've been working with. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to brush that on to any of those yellow spots. Trying to avoid the hair. And then again, like if you've seen any of my other videos, I usually use the wand tool for this, but honestly it's such a small selection that I need to work on that just using the brush would work. So we're duplicating the background layer again, and now we are going to go into Blur Gallery, and then you actually have a bunch of stuff, but we're going to go into Blur, Gaussian Blur. So this is the one we want to use. So now all I did was create that mask and invert it. That way it's going to be hidden, but I can reveal it with white. And then I just painted it on. And any last final touches I'll do now. So if I still feel like it's too overly saturated, I'll kind of like keep looking at it for a while. And usually what helps is if you go like back to everything and see if it's even like, something that you really wanted. So this is where we started off and this is where we're ending. So let me go ahead and zoom in there. So this is the beginning and this is the end. So you can go from here or you can just save. It's up to you. I'm pretty happy with this, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it like this. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And I know this is a bit of a longer one, but I hope you learned something. And I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye.